Hello. This is the 192nd Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 2224, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. Do you remember the days where I kept mispronouncing the number?
Not the number itself, but like that, the ending part, yeah? I do. That was a long time ago.
Exactly. It hasn't happened in a long time. More good news.
Yeah, a bit of a stretch, but sure.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's good news.
So there was a new national park declared recently.
Yeah, pretty huge one, yeah.
Yeah, in East Africa.
Yep, all along their old highways.
Definitely.
Motorways, autobahn, big old roads.
Yeah.
Or what used to be big old roads for cars. Now it's a national park.
And a lot of places in the world, because we don't need the roads anymore, because we now move around either by teleporter or through the air. A lot of roads have been cleared up. Also, especially in areas where there's a lot of nature. But because the cheetahs really love them.
They like having these long, not straight exactly, but basically long unbroken stretches where they can run super fast.
It's a lot easier to run across the road than through shrubbery.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, the road is now grown over with some grass, but exactly, it's relatively low compared to the surrounding grasses. And
flat and so on, yeah. So once we stopped driving cars on them, which is what we used to do apparently, they were still there. And then nature really has a knack for saying, hey, I can use this for something. Yeah. Yeah, so good news.
Good news for East Africa and good news for cheetahs especially.
Yeah. Okay, so I can't figure out a bridge between that topic and this topic.
That's tough to segue. So now that's the main topic.
Yes,
just like that.
The main topic, and the title, it's MMAcevedo, which we will not really mention a lot during the episode because the whole concept also has a nickname. And the nickname is Miguel.
That's right.
Yes. And
so we'll just talk about Miguel from now on.
Yes, exactly. So what is Miguel? Who is Miguel? We're going to explain that. I mean, we've known about Miguel since forever, basically, because Miguel's
been around a while.
Yeah, longer than we have anyway.
Yeah, even me, yeah.
And we both know a few Miguels.
Yeah.
They're exactly the same, friendly man.
Yeah, kind.
Little naive.
Considerate. Yeah, maybe a bit. Well, some people think he's naive. I reckon it's more that he's really trusting.
Yeah. Little out of touch sometimes.
Sometimes.
Can also be cute. They're basically part of our everyday life. But we haven't mentioned them before. No. So we thought, let's change that.
Yeah. Give Miguel his due.
Yes, exactly. But it can be a little bit complicated. So I was thinking either you explain it or I explain it. Or we do...
Do you have a preference, or how shall we decide?
Let's do stone, paper, scissors.
Scissors, paper, stone.
Yes.
Is the order in English. But yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know why, but scissors first, then paper, then stone.
Okay.
Let's give it a go.
Cool.
So for our listeners, we're doing this. You'll totally maybe hear our hands moving through the air. Who can say? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's a draw.
Both scissors. Both scissors.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Next up.
So...
draw again, both rocks.
Yes.
Draw again, both paper. Okay. So we're thinking alike, I guess.
Yes.
So. Okay, I'm going to think, what are you going to do next? Okay,
yes.
Got it.
Now,
scissors. I mean, I thought this would be a quick way.
Yes, exactly. But this is going to be super exciting. Okay, again.
Okay.
Aha.
At last, there's a decisive victory for yourself. Stone beating my scissors.
Okay.
Rock, stone, rock. Either way.
So how big a chance is that we had like 4 draws in a row? Okay. Anyway, stone, I win.
Yes.
Okay, so I get to explain.
We've been making podcasts together for too long, I think, and that's why our minds are so similar.
It could be. Or yeah, okay,
anyways,
something like that.
You win.
Okay, so...
You get to explain.
Yes.
I get to have a drink.
So, Miguel. So, we already mentioned, these are many different persons that are the same person. So, they're neither a doppelgänger, nor a clone, nor a replicant. They're basically really Miguel. Officially called, what we said at the beginning, MMAcevedo, but nicknamed Miguel. So essentially that actually dates back to the mid-21st century. So
just after our listeners.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple of years, a couple of decades after where you, the listener, are living. This was the moment where a snapshot of a brain of a student.
Like it was the first one successfully uploaded. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. So this was exactly. So this was a student that was working on this project, as far as I understood, and then his brain was uploaded or duplicated, basically
imaged. Yeah, like it was. He kept living. Yeah, it wasn't like he was destroyed or anything like that. But like a snapshot, like you say, an image of his mind was made uploaded to a computer.
Yeah,
and the big deal was that it was the first time that it was done with sufficient detail. And clarity that it could actually be used for other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Not crashing.
Exactly. Before, when they tried to do that, cool, you've got a snapshot in quotation marks, but then it wasn't useful for anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the first time. We'll get to that in a bit, but not the last one.
No.
But the best one.
Seemingly so far. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
Nearly 200 years, the best one so far.
Yeah. So this is so this was the first part, and then this a little bit later on they combined this with cloning technology to clone the initial Miguel basically physically.
Yeah, like after the original had died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They already did.
During his lifetime. I thought it was after he died that he gave them permission. But okay, either way.
No, I think
later on.
Yeah, I think both. So both during his lifetime and also afterwards. Okay. But I'm not totally sure. It's a long time ago.
So then physical clones of his body?
Yeah.
Combined with the images that were made of his mind?
Yeah.
So like...
Exactly. So, and this essentially created exactly the same person. So this was initially done in a university environment. So this was also initially... Project. Yeah, exactly. And then this was also changed into a course. So students around the world were basically replicating this process just to learn about uploading snapshots using the one that was already there, was basically part of the course material, creating their own Miguels. And this, from the get-go, this was kind of also an open source approach.
Like both the body cloning as well as the mind uploading.
Yeah.
Or, in this case, the mind implanting.
Exactly. And so this was also done at university, but also kind of started to lead its own life. So everybody started creating Miguels also outside of the universities and so on. Became a bit of a trend. Everybody had their own Miguel, and at one point it's got a little bit out of hand. And then the Miguels themselves, of course, they were human beings.
Yeah, they knew what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. And then
they had the memories of Miguel up until the age of 21, up until the point he was uploaded.
Yeah, and they were aging as well. So every new Miguel was again 21 years old, or however old the student was. But the previous Miguels were at that point older.
Sure.
So there were more and more Miguels around in the world. And then at one point, I'm not sure when this was, they were declared sentient, which essentially they have really been from the get-go because they...
But right, initially they were considered like university projects, I guess. Like they weren't considered, whole sentient people.
Exactly. Although, they were just like anybody else. I think just society didn't really have a stamp for them.
Right. Didn't have a framework for there being many, was it in the end like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of instances of one person.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Like, so... Yeah. What's your social security number, and this kind of stuff.
They all have the same one,
yeah. So this was, at one point that got regulated, that's just a separate category of beings, which is Miguel. And like I was saying, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, is a little bit unclear how many there are. And also how many there were, because the initial Miguels, including the initial Miguel, of course, they're long gone by now.
Sure, yeah.
Relatively short-lived.
Yeah.
Even for 21st century standards, as far as understood, but definitely for 23rd century standards.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting thing, actually. So initially, I'd say for both even. So Miguel's mind, having been uploaded, and then, used as, so researched, so studied initially, and then used as training material, and then basically continuously studied for nearly 200 years. It's maybe one of the best well understood human mind
Yeah.
in history. And then similarly, because the cloned bodies are also based on or are using Miguel's DNA. So then, by now it's so clear. It's been a lot of research gone into. So how much of so genetic diseases, how are they influenced by environment and diet and so on? So of course they will start with the same genetic material, but then
because there are so many of them that live so very
different kinds of lives. Yeah,
but because there was initially. In the beginning, people were a little bit uneasy, I guess is the right word about it, because more and more Miguels started to appear everywhere. And it was a while where people didn't realize these are different people. It's like you meet Miguel, you go like, "Hey, how are you doing?
Sure.
Did you finish that book you were reading?" And he goes like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then
I think it's a bit forgetful, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And then because in the beginning it was maybe dozens of Miguels or hundreds or whatever, but at one point everybody knew a Miguel, and at one point people started getting confused. He doesn't remember our conversations until this became commonly known. There are many, many of them. Yeah, still kind of annoying because you never know which one you're talking about. Two, I mean.
Sure, yeah. I mean, depending if it's a Miguel, you're good friends with, you see him every day, okay, then you'll know who you're talking with. But to your point, like just, walking around in town, seeing in the distance, hey, I know, that's my Miguel. You go over to talk to him and he doesn't know who you are.
Yeah. Or, hey, you dropped your umbrella, that isn't mine. Yeah. And then, okay, there was some other Miguel. But the thing is, he's a very likable person.
Yeah, really wonderful to talk to.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that was a reason why they decided to pick him, or if he was just right there at the right moment at the right time.
Yeah. So it's wonderful to talk with him, and he takes an interest in you.
Yeah.
He really wants to. He's not like faking it; he wants to listen to you.
And he's also very much open to finding out new things, discovering new technologies. This is probably also why he was in the actual project to begin with, right? So he wasn't just grabbed from the street; he was actually one of the students working on this.
Yes. Right.
Volunteering, I guess, to say, hey, we can use my mind. But that's also, I guess, one of the reasons why we have so many Miguels, because at one point they put a stop on randomly creating new Miguels all the time. Right. But Miguel is doing it himself.
Yeah, and that isn't something to be interfered with. So because the Miguel clones themselves, their cloned bodies are sterile, they can't have children. But everyone has it's a human right that everyone has the right to procreate. That's the wrong word.
Procrastinate,
yeah, everyone has the right for that. The other way around.
Proclaim?
No, so the thing that it's not allowed is for governments to interfere in people having children.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's the point. And so he's sterile, so sure, he can't have children that way, but he can make clones of himself, and that's protected.
Prostate? Sorry.
That's again something else.
Okay.
Yeah. So have offspring. I can't think of the word for it, but
there's probably a word.
Yeah.
Okay, but
and that's how they keep being more Miguels, because the Miguels themselves, at some point, they want to have children, they want to raise someone, and so then they make more Miguels. They're a little disappointed. They seem to forget. I don't know if forget's the right word. They have adult children, because when Miguel is instantiated, he's 21 years old.
Starts at 21 every time, so you get...
But still, you're a Miguel who's like 42, and you're like, you still can be like a mentor, give guidance to your younger self.
And they also always have the feeling that they are somehow all connected or so. It's like I have that if I fly around on my hoverboard and I see somebody with the same hoverboard, we kind of wave, like, hey, understanding.
I know what you mean.
And I have the idea that the Miguels also have this. They don't have like a secret handshake or so, but it's still.
I can imagine they just use web forums like everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have one dedicated just for Miguels.
And there's also maybe to share knowledge with each other, stuff like this.
And compare notes, like you're having difficulty in your life, you can have a whole bunch of other people who have not necessarily gone through the same things, but, think about the world in a similar way to you.
Yeah, exactly. And they have the same background and the same starting point.
Yeah. And when one of them, so we ourselves are not Miguel. Yeah, we should ask, I should ask the guy on my waveboard team. Because
you have a Miguel.
the goalie in my team is Miguel. But what I was just thinking about was, like in my life, at various points I've worked things out. It's like, this is really good. I'm glad to have worked it out. If I could have known this 50 years ago, for example, that would have been really good. With the Miguels, they can't do it for their own life, but they can share what they've learned,
And you can just, when they start out, it's like, just read this message board and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Maybe they have like an Alipedia page that explains it. Getting started. Welcome to the world. Here's what you need to know.
Yeah. And the spoiler sections, like, again, not for specific events, but rather maybe ways you'll think about things. If you want to be surprised, don't read this. But if you want a bit of a sneak peek, here you go. But
I guess it doesn't need to say these are your favorite movies, because that's what they already know, because that's part of the...
up to that point.
On the snapshot.
But to your point, like, hey, you've freshly instantiated, there's like 180 years since later, these are the films that have come out since then, and you really love... If you want to know,
that's
really
a good point.
These ones.
And then it's like, if somebody tells me, you're going to like that movie, okay, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But if I'm Miguel and Miguel is telling me you're going to like this movie, I'm going to like it.
Well, yeah, but with age things, like you'll love this when you're 50, for example,
Okay.
Don't worry about it in your 30s, it won't really register, but when you're 50, this is the stuff.
Or exactly, like, don't try olives right now.
Wait for your taste to change.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Kind of makes me wish I was a Miguel, be able to take advantage of that kind of knowledge.
But it's still like their paths diverge still, right?
Of course, yeah. So they all start off at the same point.
Yeah.
So, of course, the first few years, very similar. But the more their life goes on, they'll diverge, take different interests, follow different paths.
Learn new languages.
Yeah, live in different parts of the world, of course.
Try new hobbies.
Go into outer space.
It's also because I think they never get beyond like 65 years old or so. So I can imagine that's also a little bit, I don't know, daunting, or I don't know.
You mean like to effectively wake up as a 21-year-old and to know very soon after, if you read the Alipedia article, to learn that you will not live older than 65. Like that's, 44 years. As a 21-year-old, I think 44 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
But okay. To know that your whole life.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe it's just, you have a clear deadline.
Right. You know how to pace yourself, maybe.
Exactly. Okay, so this, and also like, I want to see Kathmandu before I get 65 or so. Mm-hmm. You could, but on the other hand, there's like millions of other Miguels have all been there. You really also want to follow in their footsteps, or just do something for yourself. I don't know. But that's also interesting. They have various ages, right? So. Yeah.
Like instantiated at different times. So then, big wide breadth.
How old is the Miguel and your Swaveball team?
Yeah, it's 33.
Okay.
Reasonable age for a Swaveball goalie.
So I have two that share an apartment in my apartment building.
Okay.
Yeah, it's near the top of the pyramid.
Okay, yeah.
It might actually be the top apartment, come to think of it.
Nice.
But I thought that was pretty cool. They share an apartment. Yeah, it's like
we mentioned how nice a person, like how just wonderful a person Miguel is to talk to and to hang around with. Makes sense that he enjoys hanging out with himself as well.
Yes, and also I can imagine maybe the other place in the apartment freed up, and he just posts on a message board, "Hey, any new Miguels around looking for a place? I have a slot." And so like, okay, so, or maybe it's just the Miguels rent apartments all over the place. So whenever new Miguels appear, they can just immediately have somewhere to live. Mm-hmm. What I find interesting, because I've occasionally spoken with them in a hallway or basically on the hover desk. Mm-hmm. They're, like you mentioned, very likable people. They struggle with modern technology.
Indeed, they are. At least they grew up, from their perspective, their first 21 years were spent 180 years ago.
Yeah.
So it takes some of them, exactly, it's a bit of a challenge to adjust to life here and now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's they have to, exactly what you're saying, like their starting point is 180 years ago. So it's just, imagine for listeners, 180 years ago from you is somewhere
1844,
something like that. Yeah. So just imagine somebody 1844 being dropped in 22, 24.
Or 2024 for our listeners, but
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. And then, okay, so they have to not just understand technology, but basically society and people, how you get along, and the world views you have, and the rights and the changes. And in 200 years or 180 years, a lot of things change. So that's because they're very open and very likable, so they kind of,
tends to work out well, and they adapt pretty quickly. But there are, especially those first few weeks when they are still 21, there can be some awkwardness occasionally.
Yeah. And also they somehow never end up in, I don't know, management positions or politics or...
Right. I mean, right, because they don't seem to have that drive for that.
Exactly. And also they don't do the newest inventions or have the most promising startups or stuff like that. They just seem to kind of just float along in life. Mm-hmm. The barista at the UFO Hub was Miguel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because I don't go there so often, but you work there, so it makes sense you'd know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one in Spa, it's the one I get to the most. But yeah, so he's Miguel too. Yeah. So it's super suited for that job because he's like really good for a chat.
Yeah, makes sense. While he's making your coffee, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would love him as my boss. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But as my barista, awesome. I couldn't imagine a better one.
Indeed. And then it's a pretty different job from a barista, but Napoleon Shaman is also a Miguel.
True.
So that's a bit more intense than a barista, depending on the shaman,
But he's a relatively old Miguel already, right?
Sure, yeah.
Remember in his 50s, something like that?
Yeah, I think late 50s.
Okay.
So he's got the long, wise beard and so on.
It's funny, he keeps his hair, huh?
Yeah.
It's like on his head.
Yeah, some shave it off, of course, but it doesn't go bald naturally.
Yeah, okay. Anything else in particular we want to point out about Miguel?
I just realised, 180 years ago, roughly or so, he was 21. That means he was 1. This episode's going back, I guess. Yeah. And we're being a bit fuzzy with I didn't look up the exact years, yeah.
But he might just have been born already.
Yeah. Little baby listening to our show.
Exactly. If there's a baby Miguel around where you are now, he's going to be super famous.
Potentially.
There's probably more than one Miguel.
The one who'll go on to do all this stuff that we talked about that you can't possibly change because that's not how time travel works.
Yes, exactly. That's not how things work. Miguel is part of everyday life. If you ever get a chance to visit the 23rd century, and after the third Miguel you see, you go like, didn't I already meet this guy? Yes, you did. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. So listeners to Tests from the Future in the year 2024, or I guess later, please send an email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com with the number 192 in the subject, and that way we'll know this episode successfully went back in time. And if you know any baby Miguels, let us know that too.
Definitely. Did we get any listener questions, actually?
Oh, I don't... Let me check. Sorry, I skipped over it because I thought we didn't, but you're right. We do here.
Should we do scissors, paper, stone? Who gets to read it?
Sounds good.
Okay, here we go. Oh, scissors again.
Draw again. Okay. Haha, no, wait. Yeah, you won.
I have paper.
You have paper, I have a rock.
Okay.
You get to read.
Okay, so, the email is relatively long, so we summarized it. Sandro, thanks. But in a relatively long email, Sandro, who gave us the impression that he knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way he wrote about it.
Exactly. So he was asking us how intellectual property is handled outside of Earth or even outside of our solar system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how is it?
So it's a thing neither of you or I knew because it's not a thing we really pay attention to. Like I know of it as this historical thing that used to be a thing in the past. So we looked it up and it's not regulated.
Nope.
Nice and easy.
There's no rules about this.
Sandro asked about outside of Earth or even our solar system, but also here on Earth, it's not regulated. So
Nope. We looked it up. No rules. It's a wild world, 23rd century.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting.
Okay, so hope that answers your question, Sandro.
Yeah, thanks for sending it. And I mixed things around a bit, but our listeners know how to contact us.
Definitely.
michaellasagna5@gmail.com.
All right. Then thanks, Sandro. Thanks, everybody else. And see you in 200 years.
Bye-bye.